And the green flag drops and we are underway. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome back to the Positive Perception YouTube channel for what is another round in our I'm trying to think of the word to say then. Our iconic, what I'm looking for, GT
It goes back to the
Championship.
typical iconic word.
What's worrying, Chris, is that I was nearly going to say incompetent, and that's exactly the opposite of what I was going for.
Good start. Good start.
Exactly. We're here at Suzuka this evening. It is the Rising Sun, something like that. You can tell I've really prepared for this. I should have spent about 5 minutes on ChatGPT beforehand just to prep a little intro, but you live and you learn. Good evening and welcome back to round number 2 of this season. Really looking forward to this one. It's a 60-minute race. This evening, round 2 of 6 in our 7th season now of this Positive Perception GT Championship. My name is David Wrestle, and as you probably already gathered, I'm joined by our resident stateside commentator, Chris Honourable. Chris, good evening to you, sir. How are things?
Very, very good. It's nice to be back on comms with you guys. I wasn't able to attend the race last week, so I missed my little positive perception fix, but we're back. We're at Suzuka. We're at a long race today, so people won't get the chance to kind of redeem themselves if they make some kind of big mistake, so I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 60-minute race. Mandatory tyre stop. Fuel is not allowed. Refueling is not allowed. That's what. Goodness me. Right, I'm going to slap myself in the face for a few minutes and sort myself out. Yeah, so refueling's not allowed. So what you fill at the start is what you have.
Hopefully we don't see anyone just kind of peter off onto the side and go, oh no, I did not bring enough fuel.
Yeah, as I've said to you already, I think there's a few people who think that might fall foul of that, but I'm hoping that won't be the case. We've told them enough times now, so hopefully that will deter them from forgetting to refill. Good evening to those of you watching already. Thank you for stopping by. If you're watching this on repeat, then thank you for coming back as well. If you haven't done already, hit the like button and subscribe and hit the little bell notification. I'm still yet to figure out. I've hit that little bell notification on a few channels myself, and you know how you get all and personalized. No idea what that latter bit means. I'm assuming it picks up on what I watch, but it hasn't done that yet.
From my experience, it just never notifies you. So pick the all notification if you want to be notified.
There you go. Exactly. Or just join the Discord. Hit exclamation racing in the chat and you can get a link to the Discord as well. Here's me hoping that was an indefinitely set up link so that someone tries to click on it now and it actually still works. We've also got live timing for you. You probably see the pin message in the chat. So if you want to have a look at everyone's times they're going through the sessions, then feel free to do that. We're just waiting at the moment for the guys to do the briefing. So Mr. Raddenbury himself, Posper Bossman Mark, will be going through his little sheet of notes to tell everyone to be nice and be friendly to one another on the track. And hopefully, Chris, we won't see some of the incidents. I mean, to be fair, last time out at Monza, obviously we had the two 30-minute races, didn't we? We kind of thought turn 1 was going to be a bit messy. It was actually quite all right, wasn't it, in fairness?
It was. I think the overall incidents did happen towards the back, but that was because of the overabundance of caution. And then the second race, of course, Mr. Mark Raddenbury himself puts in the Discord, go normal, or, I forget what his exact words were, but he's like, race like you normally would race. Don't be overcautious. Let's get through this. And then the second race was a lot cleaner in the beginning laps. But overall, like you said, yeah, it was a very good first round of the season. And I'm just excited to see what these guys do, because Suzuka is, I don't know if I want to say it's more forgiving, but it definitely feels like it's an easier track in my mind. And I don't know necessarily why I think that, to be honest.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I would agree. I don't know. I guess with Suzuka, it's one of those where, because it is twisty, it's lots of corners in there. It's one of those where I feel like flow is important. Like we talk about the S's at the start of the lap, don't you? It's that iconic kind of camera angle that you get when you're watching F1, for example. You see them kind of steaming through there, left, right, etc. But if you get it wrong on the first corner, you do make the rest of it very difficult. So I guess in that extent, it's a bit more difficult. But you're right. I think it's probably like if you make a mistake here, I feel like there's less on the line as opposed to if you make a mistake at Monza, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as punishing. And then the snake section up there is it's not a downhill, so there's really no penalty. It's got the wide runoff areas, so if you do mess something up, you have plenty of time to kind of recover before you hit a wall or anything. There's gravel out there, but I haven't really seen that really affect too much, at least in ACC in my experience. But this track, I guess, when I think about it, it's easier to overtake on this track, which makes it feel like it's easier to race because then you're not always just kind of parked behind somebody following them.
100%. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see kind of where things obviously nice long run down into the first corner as well. And I think because it's obviously got that kind of double right-hander, haven't you? It's not got that same level of peril that you would normally see from a Monza, for example, or a Spa or anything like that. So yeah, hopefully everyone will get through nice and cleanly. How many have we got in the server right now as we speak? 27 in the server as we speak. So still got a bit of time, obviously, whilst qualifying happens before they can get in. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that goes. Anyway, because I'm conscious these guys are going to start qualifying at some point in the next few minutes, shall we talk standings before we go any further? Well, what we'll do is we'll reverse it this time. We're going to go AM to Pro. Now, if you look at the Pro standings, you'll notice it's a little bit strange. A few people weren't available a couple of weeks ago, and Marcus Richardson right at the bottom there I believe he's changed his car, which is why there is a -10 there. If not, then our championship system has incorrectly calculated it. But Robert Besant leads the way on that one. He took 2 wins, of course, at Monza last time out. Nadir Bellozzo took 2 second places, and Sebastian Bidinel took 2 third places last time out. And then Sandro Bosch and Lisa Louise trading at 4th and 5th places. Nick Kalianis bringing up the rear in terms of the point scorers with 7 there, with Philip Scott, Colin Dunn, Michael de Groot on 0 so far. I'm sure that will change for those this evening. It will definitely change for 2 of them because I can see them in the server. And then, yeah, Marcus Richardson, the aforementioned Naughty Boys Club, because I believe he changed his car. But hopefully that will change.
Make Mr. Mark angry, he will give you negative points.
Exactly. Exactly how it works. You know us well. Let's have a look at the silver standings. A little bit more spicy in this one. James Jackson, of course, had a great showing a couple of weeks ago, taking 2 wins in that one. Thomas van der Struijs bringing up in second place, 14 points adrift, 12 points back then to Ivo van Collenberg, and it's very, very nice and close out the majority from 3rd down to 10th. Steve Derrick in 4th place, Mike Richards, James Fletcher, and Gianluca De Luca and Alessandro De Candia all on 70 points apiece. Andrea De Perna and then Mark Cooper bring up the rear a further few points back on that side. And finally, the big boys at the top, the Pro standings. And I've just noticed the Pro bit doesn't appear on the screen for some reason, probably because I've been mucking around with it. Marcus Hagel leads the way in that one. It's a Pulse 1-2, so both of them taking 1st and 2nd respectively in both races. Last time out, Karolis Jurgulis in the Porsche, I believe. Chris, is that the meme car? Is that the meme Porsche?
I believe that is. I think you're correct with where it's the meme livery Porsche, which is absolutely fabulous. If
you guys are wondering what on earth we're talking about, you'll see it when we go into the server. I'll make sure we point it out so you can see exactly what we're talking about. Noah Dodds and Aurelien Croix are 5th, 4th and 5th respectively. Then Matt Damon and Martin Thorpe are both on 70 points apiece. Gaz Gazulina, Dario Zappa and Ash Coupland round out the top 10 on that side. I know, Chris, it's impossible to say this without sounding ridiculous, but I know it's only been one race, but things are still already really close, aren't they, in terms of those standards? Like, it shows you how much, especially a double race round like we had, obviously, at Monza a couple of weeks ago. It shows you how much things can change between one race to another, can't it, in those certain types of rounds that we do, the double headers.
Agreed. And one of the things that's really nice if you look at the points standings is that it's a situation where if you show up, you're kind of in the running. So it's not going to be one of those situations where, if you happen to get 10th place or where, bottom of the grid, then you're not going to be completely out of it right at the beginning of the season. You still have a chance to catch back up again and get into the good level of points. The only thing that really penalizes you a lot is, as we saw, changing cars, which gives you a little bit of a negative mark on there, or not showing up, which, as it should be, is a big fat 0.
Absolutely. And it'd be interesting to see, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure everyone does know at this point, but obviously new ACC update going out, I believe a couple of weeks from now. I think it's 2 weeks yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. The day before the third round, which is at Donington Park, if my memory serves me correctly. Of course, at the moment, we know there's 3 new cars coming out into that. It'll be interesting, Chris, to see how many people elect to take the punt on points. You and I were talking about it before the broadcast, saying that neither of us, I think, would even consider doing it, but there's possibilities for some people to maybe change their tune and try something different if things aren't going their way.
Yeah, that's always a hard thing to do, especially for me, because I'm a little bit of a creature of habit. So I will do a lot of like each night that I race, for instance, I will do one car and pretty much stay in that car for that evening. Now, these guys that are racing in the actual season, sticking with one car, in my mind, would seem like the logical answer. But the interesting thing about sim racing is that a balance of power update can come out mid-season, and all of a sudden, without changing cars, you've changed cars, if you know what I mean. So, potentially, switching out to something that's a little bit more advantageous in the video game realm that we do live in here might actually benefit them, even with the point deduction.
It's a very good point, isn't it? Yeah, like you said, I mean, what we got? We've got a new Lamborghini, a new Ferrari, and a new Porsche coming out. The Ferrari's the only one that's a genuine changing car. Obviously, like the Porsche and the Porsche and the Lamborghini, correct me if I'm wrong, are just evolutions of the previous car. So it'd be interesting to see. I think that if I was going to see anyone do it, I feel like it would be those wanting to give the Ferrari a go. Obviously, like you say, new cars typically tend to be the quicker ones, I think is probably a fair assumption to make. But I mean, well, I suppose the one thing everyone's trying to work out is the fact that we've got what I can see 4 Porsche drivers on the grid. How many of them are going to be in a different Porsche the next time we come back? Right. And will it have more top speed?
The next time you sit in the car, you're like, wow, this thing's quick now. What happened?
Yeah, we'll see Porsches making overtakes down through the crater curves down the back straight at Donington Park. I think, what on earth is going on here? who's flipped this?
Porsches completely flip, and BMWs are in the back, and Porsches are just pulling away from the front like it's a Red Bull situation or something.
Exactly. I can imagine that would probably cause more carnage than it's worth, because no one would, I mean, you'd expect some people would know to expect it, but some of them wouldn't, would they? Like you'd have some people would like driving the Porsche going, oh my god, it's quicker than I'm used to, what's going on?
Oh yeah. You will inevitably have one of those sim racing drivers that, you know, has a normal adult life and hasn't had the opportunity to try their car since the update, or not enough to really feel out the differences in the car. So you're gonna get those situations where maybe a incorrect braking point or a little heavy on the gas pedal, and you could throw that Porsche into a spin really easy with a little bit of a heavy foot.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, speaking of heavy feet and all that sort of stuff, we have got qualifying underway, so let's hop into the server. No, not into that one. Into this one, so that we can see. You can ignore the purple laps for the next few minutes, because they'll kick themselves into gear in just a second. Now, you can see what I've done, Chris. I have checked this before we switched over to the broadcast channel. This is the meme car that we're talking about. So to those of you who've never seen this on stream before, this is the meme Porsche that we're talking about of Carolus Jurgulis. Is that Michael Scott, I believe, from the US office?
Yeah, it's Michael Scott. He's doing one of his infamous impressions from the American office. Pretty funny little gag that he does there. And then, you know, you have the very recognizable front logo. I'm sure there's a couple of people out there in the chat or watching the stream now that probably recognize what's going on there under Pepe. And then you got a couple of fake Subway logos and miscellaneous things all over the car, which is just, it's fabulous, because I think it was there's the fake Amazon one. That's the one. We didn't recognize that one until like almost the end of the first round. And then when you went to this camera, I was like, oh, that's great. Come on.
Yeah, that was my personal favorite. Slavazon is a fantastic one to look at. I always forget that little frog. Is it a frog? Pepe, is he a frog? I don't really know.
Yeah, he's like a frog, I guess. I don't know, just kind of like a green alien, some people think. But I always go frog because, I don't know, I just think of like Kermit or something, like a meme version of Kermit for some reason.
No, I get that. I'm not one of those people who understands all of this sort of stuff, so I'm not even going to begin to understand what he's doing, why he's doing it. But I was aware that he's called Pepe, and I'm like you in the position of I think he's a frog. Doesn't look like anything else other than that. But
Well, conveniently, I'm in the dad ages, so I get to catch on to the memes and the emojis and all the things, right as they're being moved on from. And my kids are always like, "Oh, come on, Dad, that's old. Like we don't care about that anymore."
Do you go all in and then pronounce them the wrong way as well to really get under their grill?
No, I actually try. I try to be the cool dad and use culturally relevant references, and they're like, "Dad, that's so like 6 months ago." I'm like, "Oh, we're already moved on." Oh, okay.
God, at least they're nice enough to tell you rather than like,
Yeah, they're
watching you and laughing in the background as you make that same mistake over and over again for saying something that's no longer relevant. I suppose.
yeah, but I'm that typical dad that once I find out that it's already been moved on from, I like lean in more because I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
God,
gonna
yeah.
use it. It's my thing now.
100%. Yeah. That's when I feel, and as a respected dad myself, that's why I feel like it's the right time to do it. I think that's when you kind of push it a bit more, because that's what a dad should do, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think so. It's just one of those things where we have to kind of push the envelope on things that are old and already moved on from. Because if we didn't, then we wouldn't be like, "Oh, Dad," we'd like be too cool. So
Yeah.
we got to bring ourselves down just enough.
exactly. One of the main caveats of being a father is to not be cool, but purposefully not do it. We're not just uncool. Purposefully not cool. There's a very big difference.
You have to mix in the "I'm not cool" on purpose, so they can't really find out when it's on accident.
Exactly. It's all a game of smoke and mirrors, really, isn't it? Anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's just tricking your kids is how being a father is.
Exactly. This is exactly it. But anyway, as Marcus Hagel crosses the line, he's the first person to put his stall out on this one, a 159.822. We'll see where that comes out in the grander scheme of things over the next few laps or so. I'm hoping
It's actually pretty strong. When they were in the practice modes, not many people were underneath that 2-minute mark. Now, I know it's practice and it doesn't really mean anything quite yet, but putting up a 159, assuming that's not your best time that you're going to throw out there in a qualifying session, that's a strong time already to be, showing all the other drivers, hey, you got to get under that 2-minute mark if you want to be up here with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know how difficult it is to get under that 2-minute mark. I remember I practiced and pre-qualified, I think was the term, for a 24-hour race at Suzuka a couple of years ago before my GPU decided to pack in, so I couldn't actually race. I was gutted. And I remember the challenge for us was to get into the 59s because it was one of those averaged qualifying sessions, you know what I mean? Like they take everyone's times. And I was one of the slower half of the team, of the four of us. And I remember being coached and essentially dragged towards that time. And it took so many efforts. It's like that whole, like, what is it, the under the 218 at Spa. It's that sort of vibe. I feel like it's getting under a 2-minute Suzuka. It's a similar sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. And I used to be a hot lapper, if you will, where pretty much I wouldn't really get on the grid because most of the time my racing sessions were watching a movie while also racing kind of a deal. So I definitely can feel that, like, chasing that perfect time for way longer than you should. Because there's some drivers out there in sim racing where they're like, "Oh, I know what my best time is. I'll just go out there and hit it whenever I feel like it." They'll just turn on the gas and then all of a sudden, boom, there's their best time. Yeah. I am not one of those people. I am one of those people that's like, I know what my fastest time is, and I have no idea when it's actually going to pop out.
It could be anywhere.
Yeah.
It'll appear at some point. As Carol Jogulis, the meme car, goes 2/10 quicker, so puts himself on pole for the time being. Mark Neutling's there, goes a little bit quicker as well. I think he gained about 4 tenths in the end there, and that's Thomas van der Struijs in the Mercedes behind him. I'm pretty sure that's another rather recognisable logo on the back of his Mercedes as well. This looks a little bit memey. It's a Starbucks logo on there as well. I'm not sure if that is the Starbucks logo. It certainly looks like it. Evening to I'm V Lee in the chat as well. I know he is one of our livery customers at the moment. Mark's doing a Latvian-based design for him, which I've seen. It looks very, very nice indeed. And I know he did a race last night, so I'm hoping everything went well in the race last night. I didn't really read the messages that you and Mark were sending out, but hopefully it went well nonetheless. And it's exactly the kind of thing that could be, I wouldn't say up. I was about to say could be avoided. It has now been avoided. I was just about to say Thomas was very close to the back of Mark there. Now, if we look at the timing on the timing tower, you can see there's a bit of a difference in pace between them. it feels like, and he did in the end, to be fair to him, he feels like Thomas maybe should have just backed out of that and maybe just left it for another lap, do you think? Just to avoid getting stuck behind him and ultimately probably harming Mark's lap as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Backing out is the answer there. And that's actually in sim racing, for some reason, I'm always very, very, very nervous when it comes to active qualifying like we're doing here. The iRacing style of where it's lone qualifying, obviously there's no pressure, you don't have to worry about it, but I'm always one of those people that plays it ultra cautious, where if I see someone in my mirrors, and typically, unfortunately, I'm on the bottom, but I'll pull off, or, kind of take that slower line so that they can zoom by me. But yeah, in that case, if you're the faster driver, you just have to back out. Give yourself plenty of berth so you have, that 8 to 10 seconds of time between you and the person in front of you that you can catch and get that best time. We're still early, though. Very, very early in qualifying. We should have 11:30-ish left, and that's plenty of time to put some laps together at about 2 minutes a lap.
Exactly, yeah. What you got? About 5-6 laps left. You time it right. So, yeah, plenty of time for them to gain. Speaking of gaining time, Ash Coupland just gained a little bit of time there. He's up into the top 10 with a 2 minute flat .395. That one in the end. Still a little bit off Marcus Hagel at the top there. Sorry, Chris, go on.
Yeah, if we look at this timing sheet right now, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, they're all so close together in that 2.0.3 realm. That's going to be a tight little hopscotch game there for those people that are right in that little time slot. And then you get a little bit of a gap here when you get up to 8th, but still nothing that's unattainable. It's, what is that? 200ths? Something like that. Or 2/10. I always flip those two for some reason because I see the 3 digits. But yeah, they're looking very strong, and actually even more people have put some pretty decent times up. It's looking like it's going to be a really, really close race tonight, which is really nice here because, like I said earlier in the broadcast, it's actually easier to overtake here than some of the other tracks that we're going to be on this season. So we could see a lot of really, really fun racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking back to I'm LV. I think I said Vili earlier. Apologies if I did. He's glad that we remembered him. Wish he could join our league. Well, I would strongly suggest you check back after tonight because we do have a. It's a very good problem to have in the sense that we are frequently oversubscribed in this GT season, so much so that at the moment on our current service provider we don't have the ability to manage a reserve list properly. I'll talk to you about that separately, Chris, based on your background. But it's worth noting because what we've done to account for that is if people don't sign out of the races and they don't sign up 2 in a row, of course this being the second round of the season, there will be spaces made available. So I'd strongly suggest you keep a lookout. I'm not promising that I will tell you, but I will try my best to remember when that gets announced as to there being spaces. Just drop you a little link over. If you want to get on there in the meantime, though, make sure you're following us on SimGrid. There should be a link circling around on there. I think it's sign up, !sign up. If you pop that in the chat, you'll get a link to the SimGrid profile anyway. So it's always worth jumping onto there, making sure you've got that in hand. Mark Cooper comes round the final corner, comes across the line in the Red Bull Racing engineer in brackets car, which is rather appropriate. I can confirm he does work for a certain Milton Keynes based Formula 1 team as some sort of job role, insert job role here sort of thing. Puts himself into the top 10.
Very nice, very nice. One of the things that I always shoot for is just a little bit better than my last race. So I wonder the mindset of some of these drivers out there. We're only round 2. We've only had 1 so far, and at this point, like we were talking earlier, the point system that Positive Perception has put together has made it so that you're basically always in the points race. First place isn't really that far out when you think about it, especially on a week where there's only 1 race rather than 2. And you got to wonder what these drivers are thinking right now in regards to, okay, do I just kind of play it easy, go for a reasonable number of points based on what I know, or are they pushing all out and just trying to pedal to the metal, get to that first place spot?
It's a tough one. I would be going for it every single lap. I've not got the mental capacity. Yeah, exactly. I can't think sensibly and go, I'll just go a little bit slower this time, shall I? Speaking of which, Dario Zappa clearly can't do that either because he's just gone pole. at this moment in time with a 159.5. However, well, I was about to say, however, Marcus Hagel is now going quicker. He's not anymore. He was, but he seems to have lost a bit of time. Dario's another 10th up on his lap already, so we'll keep an eye on him to see how that goes. And what we're going to try and do as well. Nope, that's not the right one. What do I want? There's a certain one here. There it is. I just want to see what it looks like. This isn't the right camera that I'm looking for. It might be the Ferrari doesn't allow me to do it, but just to see the difference. Let's see what it looks like from his perspective, because he's very, very quick. I don't know how attainable a 2 minute is now, because as I was going back to what I said earlier, as he comes, a little bit of an overcorrection going through Spoon there.
Yeah, it looks like he was kind of wondering what the driver in front of him was going to do. Didn't really have any idea if they were going to pull off or keep going. So he kind of tried to steer into the inside line a little bit, you saw there. Once he saw that the driver in front kind of pulled off to the edge in that corner, which is probably not the best place to let a pass happen, he did kind of lose it just because of an overcorrection or maybe just a recorrection or something like that. So I don't think this time's going to really do what he wants it to do. No,
you could notice there just going through the chicane at the end of the lap. He very much compromised it so that he can get the best exit possible. So I'm sure that will be a case. We'll keep an eye on it. It was a second and a half off in the end, so no time being gained there. Marcus Hagel though, 0.3 up. I'm going to check this. What is the? I feel like there is some sort of camera that I'm looking for, but I can't remember what it is. I'm just going to cycle through all of them and see if I can find it. What's that? That's a camera called Driver. That's not the right one. Never mind.
Just in case anybody in the chat or watching the stream at the moment or a video later was wondering all of the camera angle options in ACC, now you do.
They've definitely changed them. There used to be a much better onboard camera angle that I could go to. I might have to try and manually navigate to that one at some point throughout the season. Marcus Hagel, they're coming through Spoon. He's onto the back straight and he's still 0.2 up. Karolis Jurgulis, who's in third place, he's actually up on his time as well, but looking at that, I think he's invalidated, so that one won't count. Everyone in the top 4 at this moment in time is improving, apart from Zappa, who's now decided to go into the pits and immediately ruin my theory. But we'll see. Comes to the chicane. He's got a McLaren in front of him. That won't cause him any issues. That's the McLaren of Zach Hardy, I believe. He's actually lost a lot of time coming out of that exit of the final chicane, so see whether he does manage to improve enough. No, he doesn't. Doesn't improve at all in the end.
No. I mean, that's still a very, very respectable time as he just parks it right into the wall there to go back to the pits. But I think he'll be fine, even if you sit at second place. So with this track being a double right-hander first, you might actually benefit by being in place number 2.
Oh, what, you think maybe getting the outside line is going to help?
Yeah, I'm thinking, because, the inside line, while it is faster, not in a first lap situation, because there's going to be so much defense going on and worrying about getting, straight up rear-ended, let's be honest. I think that outside line is ultimately going to be a benefit in that P2, so maybe there's a little bit of strategy where he lifts up and says, no, I'm okay here. Keeping my times nice and accurate, but not overtaking to get that pole position.
It's a very interesting concept. He's done the same again. Jurgulis, I was about to say he was improving. He's then invalidated his lap. Now Dodds was also improving. He's now invalidated his lap as well. We've gone then. Carlo Durazio's just gone up into P4. So great display from the number 25 EOS Esports driver. Martin Thorpe in the Total Connexus Motorsports BMW. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that rather than just TOTL, because that seems a little bit faffy. He is 0.2 up, so he's going to put himself, looking at that, I mean, look at that, he's going to put himself up to P5, but he's going to be not too far off the second row of the grid if he keeps on gaining some time, so keep an eye on him as he comes through the final couple of corners.
Yeah, we're at 3 minutes left, and realistically, there's probably only, one really, really good lap left for everybody. So we're getting down to the time where everyone's going to be trying to put their best in or just giving up and going back to pits. So let's see what we got, because times are close. They're very, very close. We're plus 0.043 between 1 and 2, 0.78 per third. Like, it gets a little bit bigger, once it gets to fourth, but still, we're talking half a second here. We're not talking big gains.
Absolutely, yes. You saw there, Matt Thorpe in the end goes up into P5, didn't gain as much time as he was hoping for. I've come over to this man, Carlo Drazio, because, like I say, in P4 at the moment, he was our silver class winner in season number 6, so hence he's now got the pro mantle against him. He's very much up on his time now. If you can keep it clean and tidy, there's quite a big hefty gap between him and Jurgulis in third at the moment anyway, but if he gains even a 10th, he's right on the edge of the front row, potentially even pole position, but no, just lost pretty much all of that time going into 130R. Gained it back again. Keep an eye on it, see if he comes across the line. He will improve, potentially. In fact, no, he won't. I don't think he will. I'm going to stop talking because I'm clearly...
That was a lot of back and forth there.
Yeah, I'm just back and forthing with myself. Is he going to actually improve? He crossed the line. No, he doesn't. All of that for no improvement.
That's not how you enter the pits.
Give him a penalty point, whatever they call them on in the F1, and then when he drives into his teammate, don't give him one. So I've been listening to
right. Oh, grief.
I've been listening to podcasts about that this afternoon.
Oh, there's so much going on in
good fun.
F1. If you're an F1 fan out there, and I'm sure every single one of them have some kind of opinion about all of the inconsistencies this weekend, it was kind of concerning, to be honest with you. I was like, what is going on with the sport right now?
Well, I think the one that I was listening to one, I went out, nipped out earlier in the car. I've kind of gone past the point of listening to music now, so I always listen to podcasts instead. And I was listening to...
I know of a good one.
Go on.
Uh-huh.
Is it the Sim Sundays podcast by any chance?
It is.
Already an avid listener, my good man. Although I haven't listened to the latest one yet, so I need to get onto that. I was listening to one of the Formula One ones I've got, and they were talking about the penalty points and raised a really good point because obviously Pierre Gasly, for those of you who don't know, he had 10 points, I think it is, going into this round at Melbourne. He's still got the 10 points until Barcelona, which is 3 rounds from now, if I'm not mistaken. If he got 2 more points, he got a race ban. And if you didn't see the race, apologies. I'm not going to say spoiler alert because it was 4 days ago. So
right.
get on with it.
Spoilers, yeah. Like if you didn't watch the race.
Exactly. He obviously had that incident right at the end where he completely nailed his teammate into the wall.
Yeah, well.
And in every other circumstance, that's going to be a race ban. But
yeah,
I feel like the way they were saying it is basically they'll feel like the FAA isn't going to give him the ban because they don't want to be attributed by being that type of association. But if you're going to have the points in place, do the bans.
You have to follow the rules. You can't just be like, well, we're not going to follow him this time, and then we're going to follow him this other time. And it's just, the inconsistencies are scary because then, like, it's a roll of the dice every single time you do something wrong or do something right. Like, you never know what's going to happen based on the inconsistencies in stewarding.
Exactly. This is going to be really close, by the way. Sorry to cut across, but you're going to about to cross the line. Pole position.
There it is.
There it is. Now, I'm going to throw another cat amongst pigeons because Marcus Hagel is coming through Spoon. He's also going quicker. So it could be that Zappa has pitted before the end of the qualifying session and could be going from being pole on the first on the grid to third just by not necessarily having it. It could just simply be track evolution, couldn't it? It could be that in the last couple of minutes, things have just expanded massively. But
yeah, it sounds a lot like my iRacing career because I'm one of those qualifiers that goes immediately when qualifying starts. And I'm like, oh yeah, pole position. Awesome. And then by the time we're on the grid, I'm like, why am I in 10th? What just happened?
How's everyone 4 seconds quicker than me?
What is going on here?
Here we go, then. We'll see Marcus Hagel crosses the line. What's it going to be? He's got the drag of Peter Phillips in front of him. Doesn't improve in the end. No improvement for him.
Toe.
So doesn't manage to gain any time there. There's only 2 other people out on track. I'm not going to carry on watching them in the nicest way possible. Sorry, Alessandro. And sorry, Jamie Buchanan as well. But that is qualifying wrapped up. Karolis Jurgulis will take pole position for this one. Dario Zappa in second, and Marcus Hagel and Carlo D'Orazio, your top 4. We'll go to a grid walk in just a second so we can have a look through a load of the liveries that are on display. And there's one particular one that I feel is quite appropriate given where we are in the world for this evening's race. And as soon as they do grid up, we'll have a look and I'll talk to you exactly who that is. But it's close, isn't it? I mean, Lee's mentioned in the chat he's talking about the fact that the top 8 are within a second. That feels kind of disappointing compared to how it was last time, doesn't it? They were so much closer before.
I was just going to mention that, where I'm looking at the timing sheet and I'm like, wow, they're not really that close together, but they're all within 1 second of each other. But I see, an increase of the timing sheet is refreshed on me now, but I see an increase from 2 to 4. I'm like, oh man, they're way out of it. What's going on here? That's 0.2 of a second. I'm not talking 2 seconds, but yeah, it's going to be an exciting race. Race pace is different than quali pace, as we all know, and I think this is going to be a real good fight in that top 10.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very much looking forward to this as we wait for things to get underway. I'm just going to get the old POSPER grid walk segue powered up quickly, plug it in quickly, get a little bit of charge before we kick things off. So let's go and have a look through this wonderfully beautiful grid that we've got and run you through the grid for this evening's eventuality. So Carolus Yogelis taking that last minute pole in the Meme Nation Porsche, the 24 car with Dario Zappa. I'm pretty sure that's a team name. I'm going to run with it anyway. Dario Zappa alongside him. It's Marcus Hagel and Carlo Durazio alongside them on the second round of the grid in the 2 BMWs. We've then got Matt Thorpe in P5 with Niall Dodds sitting in P6. Thomas van der Stroys and Ash Coupland in P8, P7 and 8, and then your top 10 is rounded out by Miles Dixon in the sister Porsche Pulse Motorsport car, I should say, and Mark Neutelings in the BMW M6 on that row as well. Mark Cooper and Alessandro Di Candia round out row number 6, with then James Fletcher and Peter Phillips in the first of these 2 Wild Things racing cars. This is the one I wanted to pick up on. I love this, Chris. Now, I don't know if you probably have seen the Wild Things livery that Denise Pope does. She's very, very good at what she does. Obviously, does a lot of work for ACC as well. I love the fact that she's taken this and changed this into the classic. It's that old school. It was the Honda Japanese Grand Prix thing for the F1, wasn't it, with Red Bull? I love that. I can only assume that red text is Wild Things in Japanese. I don't know I'm trying to think of what the actual language is called. But I think it's a really, really nice touch for this one, for those guys to put that livery on.
That's very clean. For some reason, I have a weak spot in my heart for white liveries with nice bright colors on them, so this one fits that bill perfectly.
Oh, there you go. Perfect for you then. We'll pass the kind messages on. To carry on down through the grid, Andrea De Perna, the 101 car in 15th, Ivo van Collenberg, sorry. Is that I'm going to quickly move past that. That's rude. Lisa Louise in 17th and Ollie Gill in what is, as far as I understand, this is an AI-generated livery.
Such a fabulous livery. It's ridiculous,
so
and
cool.
It makes me want to throw in some AI-generated liveries on my cars. Because that is
cool. Super duper cool. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed. I don't know how you feel about this, Chris, about the fact that we've lost the face of Mark Raddenbury on the bonnet of that car, but the fact that it's been generated by AI is very impressive.
He should have had the AI generate a cat version of Mark and put that on the side of the car.
Oh, what a missed opportunity that was. Jamie Buchanan and Nick Cadiganis are on the 10th row of the grid. Mark Raddenbury and Mike Richards are on it's set in P21 and P22. Gianluca De Luca and Nadir Balozzo are on 23rd and 24th, with Zach Hardy and Steve Derrick in just behind them. Colin Dunn and Rob Besant in the second last row of the grid, and then it's the final 2 cars of Marvin de Groot and Richard Pixley rounding out the grid again. Just a nice little look at that car in particular, because that just looks great. Right, Chris,
very clean.
Yeah, nearly underway. I'm excited for this one. I feel like we're going to get a really good showing. I feel like there's lots to go on. Obviously, tyre stops, they're open, they can do it whenever they want. Like, there's loads of chance and opportunity for people to build their own strategy and things like that. Obviously, tyres, maybe not so much, because you're probably going to want to just split it halfway. But if there's an incident at the start, fix the damage, change the tyres, they're going to last 60 minutes. You might as well go for it, sort of thing, won't you?
Yeah, the interesting thing about a single race that is 1 hour long is that strategy actually does come into play here. So in the shorter race format that we had in round 1, where you have 2 races, you can kind of like flat out go for it in the first race, because you have that second race to kind of relax and back off a little bit to pick up some points. But in this one, you've got to make sure that you don't ruin your race in the first 15 minutes and have a long-term strategy to get to the front.
Absolutely. What is it? The 7 Ps? Preparing to plan is prepare. I can't remember what they are. I got told these when I was younger, and I can't remember what they are now.
There's a couple different.
There's a rude one. I know that
number
much.
of P's in there. Yeah, there's a rude one. There's a good one. There's probably a middle of the road one, but I'm not sure which one you're referring to. But there's gonna be some strategy out there. There's gonna be some thoughts. I wonder what people are going to do with their tires. Now, I'm terrible at tire management myself because for some reason, tire management and me just don't mix. I don't know why. I just try to get them into green, and then I floor it everywhere, and then they get into yellow, and I go, I don't know what to do from here. I'm just going to keep driving.
I'm stuck. Yeah, just carry on doing what you're doing. It was not a very good set of... It was prior planning and something poor performance that I was thinking of. But you're right, there's plenty of other ways of going through it as well, which...
It's like piss poor planning produces piss poor performance or something like that?
Improper prior... Yeah, something about... Yeah, I can't remember. It's besides the point.
I think that's one of them, but right, yeah. Hopefully they don't have that bad preparation here.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, looking at Dario Zappa, I mean, what did he put in? I think we saw it, they were talking about it in the server, weren't they? Discourse of 800 laps, apparently, that he's put in the practice server this one, which feels impossible, to be completely honest with you, but I'm impressed.
It's funny because I think about that number and I'm like, 800 laps is so many laps. But if I sit back and I remember some of my longer sessions in like normal AC, where I was just like practicing and trying to get familiar with a car and a track, and I turn on a movie and just kind of zone out and drive, I could see that happening. I could definitely see that happening where you put hundreds and hundreds of laps in, and the next thing you know, you're like, wait, what time is it?
What day is it, more like?
What day is it? Yeah. That's a lot of laps, though. I mean, at 2 minutes a lap, you can do the math. That's far too many zeros for me to compute in my head instantaneously. But
I can do 800 times 2 minutes. I can't do 1600 minutes divided by 60. I'm just not. No.
Yeah, that's no.
I don't have the brain.
If anyone in chat wants to help us out on that one, go ahead and let us know. We'd appreciate that. But
exactly, if someone wants to, if you want to equate 800 laps of Suzuka into a time in hours and pop it in the chat, I'd love to hear what you think, because I'm very intrigued.
That's like some of those people. I have some Steam friends that in certain games have put thousands of hours in. Like, I have a League of Legends friend, which I think League of Legends players are very, very dedicated to their craft, if you will. And he's put in like 6,000 hours into that game. I'm like, I don't even think I've put 6,000 hours into video gaming in the last 10 years. Like, what?
I mean, I probably have, to be fair, but by the way, I think on ACC I've put in 700 hours. But what we have to remember is the fact that probably a good 100 of them by now are doing this stuff. It's nothing to do with me watching
and
racing or anything.
You pull it up for livery design too, right? Like,
exactly.
You have it sitting there and it's technically on, but you're not playing it. Here we go. They're getting lined up for the start here now. This is where my hands get a little... I'm wearing gloves typically, so I'm okay with the grip and everything, but this is where I start to go, okay, don't mess it up. And then inevitably something like that happens where you go through someone and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, there's ghosting in ACC.
Which can be turned off, I've been told. You can imagine...
not tell anybody.
Yeah, you can imagine the carnage that you'd get. If someone would get to the end of the formation lap and think, well, I've got 20 seconds of damage going on.
I don't have to imagine it. I play iRacing.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Carolus Yogulis is going to lead us across the line to kick off round number 2 here in the Positive Perception GT Championship here at the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit. 1 hour race, 1 mandatory stop for tyres. Fueling is not allowed, so they have to have the right amount in. As we wait just to go green here, see the red lights on the gantry just at the top of your picture. Here we are, we're green here at Suzuka, and Carolus Yogulis gets the ideal start for this one. It looks like Dario Zappa in behind is having to defend a little bit from Marcus Hagel, manages to get through there into second place. Carlo Dorazio looks to do the Chris Hollowell move of going round the outside, but doesn't manage to do it, gets hung out to dry through that one. There's a little bit of accident incident at the back end of the grid. I can see it's Rob Besant and Zach Hardy, I think, getting caught up in there. But as far as the start goes for the leader, Chris, that's exactly what Yogulis would have wanted.
Yeah, Jurgelis loves what Zappa did there because Zappa opened up that gap between him and the rest of the pack for him. So by trying to defend that inside line, which was what Zappa was doing, that just gave Jurgelis the ability to just go, oh, okay, no one's coming up on my sides. I'm just off to the races. Here we go.
Absolutely. As you can see, the timing tower now deciding to start figuring out what it wants to do as we go through this first sector for the first time. Miles Dixon in P9. I think he's made up a position off the start. He has. That's courtesy of Ash Coupland dropping down into now P11. So Mark Neutling's getting past him as well. As Orge gets a little bit caught up on the curb. Easy to do that, isn't it? It's not the... It's not. It doesn't feel like a silly move. He won't like it because he's now got James Fletcher right up for company in that Honda NSX behind him. But easy to do when you just pitch up the car on those inside curbs. They are quite steep, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're a little bit of an optical illusion because they don't look all that steep because, especially in that area of the track where you're going uphill, you almost can't see the angle at which they are. So you kind of try to cheat it a little bit and get your tires on the curb. But yeah, that breaks your traction on your outside wheel. And then all of a sudden you have to make that counter adjustment, which, to his credit, it was a good counter adjustment there to keep it online.
Yeah, he did really well, to be fair. Yeah, not to lose the position and lose control of the car too much, which is always a good thing to see. But as we round out lap number 1, Karolis Jurgelis leads the way still, so he's managed to keep that gap despite the inefficiencies in the straight line of the Porsche GT3 car. He's got Dario Zappa still in behind him, and Marcus Hagel, and Carlo Durazio in P4 as well. So it's as you were for the top 4. The first change of position is between Martin Thorpe and Niall Dodds. Bit of a change there. In terms of big winners, though, the biggest winner at the moment is this man, Rich Pixley, in that Japanese-inspired Wild Things liveried car, the number 7 machine. He started back at the grid already, Chris, up into P19.
That is impressive. Obviously, there had to be a little bit of a perfect garage door open for him to just go, oh, well, look at this. I'll just take this line past all these other people here. And those are some of the best moments in racing for the person going through those gaps. But I get nervous because I always expect someone else to see the gap and then like adjust to go into it.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Meanwhile, a bit further up the field, Mark Neutling's starting to form a little bit of a train behind him. He's got, that's Ash Coupland, James Fletcher and Mark Cooper all in his wheel tracks at this moment in time. That BMW is extremely quick in a straight line. It's not as efficient through the corners by the looks of it, you would think.
Yeah, that's going to make it difficult on this specific track because there's not a lot of straight lines. Most of them are some kind of sweeping turn or steep turn. You know, obviously a lot of people have seen or raced on this track before. So I think the BMWs are actually going to struggle a little bit unless they did some setup magic. It doesn't feel like they're going to have the massive advantage that they had at Monza.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mark Neutling's leading the way in terms of the pods per BMWs in 9th. Mark Raddenbury down in P26. So had a little bit of an issue off the start. There's a little bit of gravel being kicked up there. Can't see who that was. That might have been Jamie Buchanan potentially. In fact, I think it was because he's just lost the position to Gianluca De Luca as they go down the back straight. Still, as you were at the top end of the grid, thought through as we go through. No major changes. Otherwise, as Rich Pixley manages to make the position, he's up into P18 past the AI-delivered car, the Cosmic Cat, as I'm going to call it. I'm not going to call it its actual name because I refuse to say that word on a live broadcast. Those of you will probably know what I mean. Gets himself into P18. It's got Lisa Louise ahead of him now. So she is, well, she's by far away because she's leading the AM class. She was a lot quicker in qualifying than everyone else. Only equated to a 3 position gap, to Karayanis in P20. So she's got the pace. She's just got to be consistent for the next hour or so.
That's the hardest thing, is consistency. You know, we're all sim racers. There's some of the, as they call, aliens out there that can race a perfect race pretty much every time. But for the most part, a lot of us they struggle with the consistency side. So maybe the shorter race format from, that looked like a lot of gravel under those tires, but maybe that shorter race format from round 1 actually suits a lot of sim racers better. Because right now, what I would be thinking is, okay, how much time is left? How long can I keep this pace? Oh, we got some side-by-side. Oh, side-by-side action in those corners right there. It's just a recipe for disasters. Luckily, we're not in iRacing where the grass throws you. But look at all these cars. Just, if I was in that BMW right now, I would be scared I'll be honest. I would just be like, there's no way I can keep these people off of me. There's no way that I'm going to be able to defend this
Mm.
for 54 more minutes because your
Gonna be,
nerves are shot.
it's going to be a long 54 minutes for Mr.
Yeah,
Neutralings, because funnily enough, I focused on him because I noticed he caused himself a yellow flag, so that's why he's down into P13. He's just lost the positions to Coupland, Fletcher, Cooper, and DeCandia as well. In fact, yeah, he has lost the position to DeCandia, hasn't he? Because it's DePerna behind him. There's too many do somethings in this league, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but still quite a lot of them, regardless.
it does feel like there's maybe some setup adjustments that would need to be made on that BMW because it does seem like he's struggling a little bit to keep the pace, and everyone else is kind of lining up behind him, waiting for that moment to strike.
Yeah, absolutely. You see change potentially. Oh, bit of contact there between the top three in the on the grid at the moment. That's Dario Zappa coming together with Marcus Hagel. Let's see if we can catch up with that. You see Marcus Hagel down into sixth position. So we'll go back to the replay, see what happened here. They see him just coming out of the first corner. Just looks like Dario maybe just doesn't. Oh,
I don't think he knew it was there.
no, it looked like it was. It's one of those. You're probably going to call it a racing incident. There was nothing untoward there, but I think the damage really for Marcus has been done by the fact that he's hit. It's more to do with the fact he's hit the wall, isn't it, rather than the contact between him and Zappa. It just looked like, yeah, like you say, Zappa's. I mean, obviously we can't see the radar, so we can't necessarily say that he was within his rights to kind of cut right back across. But yeah, very, very difficult to avoid that one. It's a shame because these two are very quick and obviously causing a lot of pace and a lot of what's the word? I can't think what I'm trying to say now. But yeah, pushing
that's
everyone.
a hard one because, like you mentioned, in sim racing we do have the radar, which tells you kind of the approximate location of cars around you. I noticed that wrong game. I noticed that in ACC, the car box models in that radar seem a little bit smaller, so they're actually closer than you actually think they are based on that radar. At least in my personal feeling when I'm racing side by side. So in that instance, even though he was on the radar, I don't believe that it was something that he could have seen because you're in the middle of a turn. You just hit the gravel. You have to make a evasive maneuver to keep your car on track. So you're not paying attention to the radar, where you are on track, the guy in front of you. There's just too many things for you to pay attention to. So I think he had no idea he was there, which unfortunately throws the BMW into a wall. And I think that's going to have some major impact on pace.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it? But like we say, that gives him the chance to just shed that set of tyres early doors. And you can actually see on your timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen, that is Marcus Hagel into the pits. So getting his time out of getting his pit stop, out of the way early doors. Of course, one thing we do know is that Marcus is incredibly quick. There is no denying the pace that man has in that Pulse Sim Sport BMW. I suppose the benefit for him now, Chris, is the fact that he has got an enormous amount of clean air when he comes out of the pit lane to basically just hot lap for the next 50 minutes or so. There's every likelihood he can come back and get a podium out of this, despite the fact he's got caught into the wall early doors.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of work to do, but, like you're mentioning, everyone has to pit. So pitting super early like this because of the damage, getting that repaired, getting your, wits about you a little bit, because that does give you a minute to cool down from, being turned into. Because let's be honest, anyone who's a sim racer who's ever gotten turned into, no matter how much you think it may have not have been something malicious, you're still angry about it and it affects your driving. So taking that pit stop, cooling off, repairing the car, and like you said, he's fast. So we could see a lot of interesting things happen when he's working his way back up through the field.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep a keen eye on his progress through the field. I would suggest everybody keeps an eye on the fastest lap counter that appears at the bottom of the screen over the next couple of laps or so, because I expect he'll be going very quickly in the not so distant future. Back up to the front though, Carlos Jurgulis is just starting to gain a little bit of time to the guys behind. So Zappa, they're not necessarily fighting behind, but I feel like it's that one of those things, isn't it, Chris? I know you and I have talked about it a few times. It's that kind of image of having the car like Durazio so close behind you. It does cause you to be a little bit more maybe conscious of the lines you're doing, and as a result lose a bit of pace at the same time. He's a tenth of a second behind. It's all that's Bellotto, I think, coming back onto the track at the same time. Nardol's going a little bit wide as a result, but that's going to have an impact, and that's going to benefit Carlos Jurgulis, isn't it? Because it's going to give him the chance just to focus on his race, run his lines, and ultimately it looks like he's gaining himself a little bit of time as a result.
Yeah, it's where you want to be. Let's be honest. You want a fight to be happening right behind you because, like you said, it doesn't matter how good of a driver you are. You can't drive your normal line when you're fighting with someone behind you. You have to block. You have to take different approaches. You have to protect. You have to do all of the things that are going to ultimately slow your lap down.
100%. Speaking of which, I feel like this is something that might happen to Andrea DePerna before too long. He's got the high-flying and fast-driving Rich Pixley directly in his wheel tracks. Rich Pixley was just behind Peter Phillips, who's dropped a couple of positions. He's not actually in P15 as the timing tower suggests. That will reshake itself out. Gianluca De Luca has made that move, so he's up into P15. Phillips AC confirmed there down into P16. Mark Neutelings is starting to create a bit of a gap. So not necessarily struggling as much as we might have potentially thought he would. But yeah, Andrea is one of them, like I say, it's I suppose the way you'd explain it is you second guess yourself, don't you, when you've got someone so close behind. You wonder whether the right thing to do is not to cover the inside, or maybe you do cover the inside and that obviously compromises the exit of the corner and things like that. So there's a lot of mind games, not only being the car chasing, but being the car in front who's defending the position as well.
Yeah, and let's be honest, if you're the car in front defending, you're not looking at the track in front of you for what? 40% of the drive. So 40% of the lap, you're looking up into your mirror going, okay, what do I got to do on this corner? Compromising your braking points, compromising your exits, compromising when you put your foot down because you're probably checking that mirror to see where they're at after the corner. So it has a major mind effect on the driver that's in front that has to do the defense.
Absolutely. Just looking down the rest of the order, you can see Hagel, Balzo, and Dunn have all made their pit stop so far. Steve Derrick misses the chicane entirely. Doesn't fancy it on this occasion, and that's the Casio triangle. We were talking about this beforehand, weren't we? I'm pretty sure he's just gone through said Casio triangle, which is on my track map, but not the corner that you actually take. And look how much time that's lost him. He was in front of Mark Raddenbury just as he came into that corner. It shows you how much a mistake like that can cause to your lap time. He's lost 3.5 seconds to those two in front of him because of that.
Yeah, unlike, let's say, the chicane in Monza. The chicane in Monza, you just go straight through and you get to hit a bit of styrofoam, throw it around a bit. And that one, you actually still have to take a more aggressive chicane, which is normally used in the MotoGP layout. And it's just, yeah, that's going to lose all of your time. I wonder what happened there. It's not going to be a lockup situation, I don't think, just because we do have the ABS on these cars. And I'd be willing to guess that there's not many drivers that have it completely turned off. But there was some kind of speed mistake there where maybe you were looking in the mirror like I was talking about, and you just look back at the road and you're like, wow, I missed my brake point by 100 feet. I'm going straight now.
I think it was to do with this man on screen at the moment in this Tron-based Honda. I think I've just noticed as we came into the corner, because obviously we're on the rear wing of Steve Derrick's car, weren't we? I noticed Jamie was just disappeared, just shook to the inside very late. So I don't know if that's just, like you say, hampered his braking point or not. It would remains to be seen. But whatever's happened, it's not been ideal for him. He's actually lost another second in the space of this current lap as well. So clearly that's impacted him more than you would have expected. Back up towards the top of the grid then. So Carlo D'Orazio has actually made his way up into P2 now. Niall Dodds is up into P3. Martin Thorpe is up into P4. Dario Zapata, you can see he's lost a lot of time. He actually did a 205.7 on the lap just gone. Didn't see, I've had a look back, I've looked at the incidents. No coming together with anyone else. So must have just lost it on his own. It seems to be, I don't want to associate Dario with being inconsistent or so the guy kind of makes mistakes, but that's the third time this season in all 3 races that he's made a mistake, isn't it? Because he was pole, I think, in the 2 Monza races, made mistakes, dropped down the grid, done it again. It's struggling under the pressure potentially, do you think?
Well, yes, probably. And I think it just goes to show the difference in like sim racing in general, because like I was mentioning, it's really hard for us to stay consistent for a straight hour. So knowing that you have 45 minutes ahead of you, it's almost like the thought of consistency makes you more inconsistent, if you know what I mean. So you're sitting there thinking, I have to be better, I have to be consistent, I have to do well all through these laps. And you're thinking about that so much that you make more mistakes.
it's a cruel beast. Is any form of consistent based requirements, isn't it? Like you say, it's always so difficult. As soon as you think you have to do something, it's almost nigh on impossible to actually do it. And I feel like all I'm doing at the moment is I'm going back to my broadcasting app on the other screen, and I feel like I'm just getting drawn back to Andrea De Perna, because every time I look at the timing chart, he's really close to someone. And it's, unfortunately for him, it's not someone he's closing up to, it's someone who's closer to him, which is rather inconvenient for him. He's got Lisa Louise, Peter Phillips, and Ollie Giel all close in behind him. Now, I know for a fact all three of them are in a Discord chat between them. So I wonder if there's any kind of... And Nick Karianis, who's just behind them as well, is also in said chat as well. It'd be interesting to wonder what they're saying. I'd be fly on the wall for that conversation, do you think, to see what they're talking about.
Right. If we could guarantee that it would be stream safe, it would be very interesting to be able to just peek in and spy on them a little bit during the stream here.
Yeah, I can guarantee you I'm not going in there, because I very much doubt it'd be stream safe. But you never know. Just calling back to it, noticed it a second ago, Marcus Hagel, fastest lap of the race. So he's done his pit stop. He's already quicker than anyone else. So
yeah, he's flying at a 2 minute, pretty much even, 2 minute .650. And that's the fastest lap of the race. That goes against, our qualifying times of in the mid 159s, but that's still lightning quick.
Yeah,
I think we're going to start to see some sub 2 minute times from him as he starts to progress through the field. And then you got to wonder when some of these cars are going to start pitting, and then all of a sudden you're just going to see his name just boost up there very, very quick.
Yeah, certainly something to keep an eye on. Jamie Buchanan there causing a yellow flag. He's dropped down to P24 now. Again, didn't catch any incidents on there. In fact, there's possible contact, I believe, between himself and Mike Richards. So I'll quickly jump back and see. Oh, there you go. That is why. Whether there's any contact between him. No, it's just...
Oh, no, just a...
synchronized almost between the two of them. I say synchronized. It's hardly, because Jamie had already made the mistake himself, but it looked like Mike just wanted to experience what Jamie had. To be honest.
Oh, that looks fun.
Yeah, I like the look of that. So there you go. So he drops back down. Mike Richards, he's up into P23 as a result of that. Even though he spun, he's still ahead of Jamie Buchanan on track. Zach Hardy sitting there in P25. We've lost one driver who I believe to be Colin Dunn. Did notice that he was struggling a little bit towards the back of the grid at the start of the race, so maybe having some difficulties somewhere to cause that. Marcus Hagel once more goes quicker again, a 2.0.272 on that occasion. Closest man to him is Miles Dixon, from what I can see, who's done a 2 minute flat .860. So the two pole Simsport guys, Chris, essentially what I'm saying is they're pretty quick.
Yeah, they've got a little pace under their pedal there, so I think we're going to start to see a lot of tuning into what's going on as he starts to pass a bunch of these people that are in the back of the grid there. Now, question for you.
Oh, I like these.
You and I kind of race in the back of the grid for a lot of the races, right? For instance, you were saying you were struggling with the GT4.
You're not meant to tell everyone that.
if you're the one that's kind of bringing up the back, and you know that your pace is kind of off, and you know someone had an incident and they're coming up on you, does that make you nervous? Even though you're like, okay, I'm going to let them pass, obviously, but does that still kind of throw off your racing game when you're back there worrying about it?
I'll be honest and say not really.
Not really.
I feel like you say, if I've got someone closing up to me and I know that they're a similar pace to me, then yeah, I would hasten to agree. I'd probably be a little bit impacted, but not massively, but enough to kind of be constantly checking the relative and all that sort of stuff. If it's someone like a Marcus Hagel, who I will happily admit is so much quicker than me, I'm gonna essentially do what I would like to coin the Lando Norris move and just get out the way. He's not in my race.
Over and wave and be like, hey, have a good one.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to wave him. I'm not happy that he's coming past me, but I'm kind of sat there thinking, right, look, I know how much quicker this guy is. He's probably half a second to a second lap quicker than me. I'm not going to...
over the bumper there. Holy smokes.
I'm not going to make it easy for him, like so much so that it damages my race, but I'm also not going to just sit in his way.
Yeah, that makes sense. See, I do the thing where I don't know if it's because I'm an iRacer or whatever, but I'm like, I don't want someone to report me for something stupid like holding them up. So I'm always like, okay, what am I going to do when they get here? How am I going to handle this? When are they going to get here? And I'm always like, okay, hopefully they get here on like the start finish straight. So I can just be like, okay, go ahead. But it always ends up being at like a chicane or somewhere that's the most inconvenient spot. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do right now to let you pass. It's so I get into my head a little bit, and it does happen to affect my race. But such is a sim racer's life, I guess.
100%. As there we see Gianluca De Luca. There's a car off. I think that's Nadir Balozzo, I believe. Yeah, yellow flag for him. He's just he's come back onto the grid now, so just sat in there. But yeah, Gianluca De Luca making the move on Rich Pixley. He got a really good run out of that corner, and I suppose that's the difference in a straight line between an Aston Martin and a Porsche, because he didn't really make that look too difficult, to be quite frank. But this is a nice little battle hotting up. Mark Neutlings has fallen back into the clutches of some other cars. But Gianluca De Luca seems like he's got a lot of pace. Now, he did actually pass Pixley, I noticed, a little bit earlier on in the race. As he go through the Degners, oh my word, I thought he was going to be very, very close there as Mark covers the inside. Goodness me. Oh, it's a little bit...
Oh, no.
I don't know whether that was contact. That felt like they'd just done the same thing. Again,
just a synchronized spin out, maybe?
I'm being told there's contact from my side of things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a different camera so we can actually see it properly, because I feel like if I do the same one we did before, we're not really going to see. As there it is. Oh, it was. Oh, yeah. Pixley definitely tapping the inside of De Luca there. I suppose it's kind of like that instant karma, because as soon as Pixley hit him, he was actually worse off than De Luca was. But not ideal for the EOS guy, who's really carving his way through the field, same as Pixley. Gianluca De Luca's actually made up 10 positions already. Pixley now 13, courtesy of the fact he's dropped back. But it's yeah, a little bit of a lazy incident, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like a little brake tap could have fixed that whole entire incident right there. So you see a battle going on in front of you that kind of gets a little tight into a corner with a defense on the inside there. So naturally, I, as the third car kind of in that battle, would probably back off, just because you don't know what's going to happen with speeds. And ultimately, that's what happened. It's had to slow down to back out of the move. And then, you know, you're in the racing line, yes, but you're kind of in, I won't say fault because I'm not one of the stewards, but it does feel like just a simple brake tap could have fixed that whole thing.
Yeah. Word for the wise, don't become a steward. It's too stressful.
Oh, no, hard pass on that one. Thank you very much.
Ironically, I've just noticed, so the two Wild Things cars, both Pixley and Phillips, have both pitted on the same lap. So they must be having a little natter with each other to decide when the opportune moment would be to pit. And I expect we're probably going to see a lot more of that over the next probably sort of 10 minutes or so as we get towards the halfway point in this race. As it stands, Karolish Jurgulis is still leading the way. He's got 7/10 of a second gap back to Carlo Durazio, sitting in P2, who's really come to life in this on this circuit this evening. Fantastic display from him so far. Niall Dodd sits there in P3 with a further 2 seconds back, and then he's got a further 2 seconds from him to Martin Thorpe, who's then also got a further 2 seconds back to Miles Dixon, who has now managed to circumnavigate the 990 car of Dario Zappa, who, just to corroborate what we were saying, Chris, is falling back a little bit more lap by lap. So I'm not sure whether there's a setup issue, whether it's a bit too pointy and he's struggling to keep that race pace, but not the race that Dario would probably be too pleased with, I would say, up until this point.
I'd agree with that 100%. It's interesting because we're getting to that point now where we're about 30 minutes in, just under. I think we're 25 minutes in right now. So we're halfway through. We are getting a little bit more spread out than I was hoping we would get. I want a couple more groups so we see some exciting action going on. But this is just the nature of a track like this, just because the sweeping turns do eventually make you kind of stretch out the gaps a little bit. It's just natural.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I just want to bring to your attention as well, Chris. So we look at Marcus Hagel, who is 23rd on the timing tower. He's got a purple name next to him because he's currently the holder of the fastest lap, for which he gets a point, I believe, in this race. He's come out of the pit. Oh, sorry. He's currently 2 seconds, 1.5 seconds ahead of Rich Pixley, who is also pitted. So that tells you roughly where Marcus is in the grand scheme of things. So, for one, not as far up as I thought I certainly expected. I don't want to speak on your behalf as well, but not really that high up. That's probably what, that's 14th place, something like that. So a lot of work to do for Marcus to get anywhere near the podium positions that I potentially forecasted he was being. It opens it up for everyone else, doesn't it, in terms of points, is what I'm trying to say.
It really does. I think we've mentioned a handful of times, the way the point structure is in this championship, it's nice and tight so that basically the entire season you can be in the running. This being only round 2, if there was some major swings in points like Hagel getting, barely any, we'll say, that would be very exciting for the viewers and us to see the leaderboards just get shaken a little bit.
100%. I mean, Miles Dixon being in 5th place, of course, throws that cat amongst the pigeons as well. Carlo Durazio, Nard Dodds is proving that consistency is key, sitting in P3, so it's going to be another good set of points for him. Of course, we're saying this, we're not even halfway into the race. Like, there is still 70, probably even 85% of the grid need to pit. So there's still plenty of scope for things to change. I am looking at Marcus Hagel's times. He's not improving as much as I thought he would. He's still in the mid 201s. So he's not lighting up the timing sheet by any stretch. He is quicker than all but a handful of drivers on the grid at the moment. So take that for granted. But not doing what I suppose me personally expected he might have done.
Move. Here we go. Come on. No, it looked a lot closer from the other camera angle. That looked like they were almost side by side, but
it did, didn't it?
Almost a car length between them at this point. So
I'll give you a prime time action replay. Oh, there you go. So that's Dixon going wide. You were right; they were close. Interesting that Dario didn't elect to hold that. Although I've just seen Dixon with a yellow flag against his name. There has appeared to. Oh, dearie me! What's happened here? He's left. He is completely disappeared. That's really, really strange that he's just decided to up and leave straight away. I'm going to go quite a bit further back on this replay just to see what happens here. This is Dario Zappa, so just going through the S's. No contact just yet. Safe. Oh, there it is. Lost it on his own. Oh, I've done that.
That'll do it.
I've done that.
That's those curbs. So you're coming up that hill, going up into the snake section. And like I said earlier, those curbs, they look almost flat when you're going up that hill. But if you do catch them at the right angle, it throws off the grip of your tires. And that's exactly what happened there. It's just no more grip, spins the back end around. The wall is a little bit close on the beginning of that snake section, so it did end up biting him.
I have made that exact mistake before in a GT4, and I know for a fact that hitting that wall in the way he did, that would have cost him a very, very significant amount of time in damages. That you're talking like at least a minute worth of time in the pits on top of your tyre change to get that done. So don't get me wrong, I would argue that none of us are advocates for people making that mistake and just deciding that enough is enough. Like, it's a bit of a shame that's had to happen, but
that is the sim racing rage quit right there.
That is the aforementioned rage quit. That's almost epitomizes it, because by the time we'd seen it happen, he was gone. So, yeah, epitomizes the rage quit there. But none the matter, it further corroborates our theory, Chris, that throws everything wide open, because Miles is second in the championship. He was running 5th. He's now out of the running. Marcus obviously in P21 at the moment. He's not anywhere near the top end. Everyone in that top 5, and you'd argue Ash in P7 as well, because of course he's technically 6th because he's 6th in class, and with class-based points here at Positive Perception in the GT League. So it means that everyone gets a really decent chance to claw back some points on the guys at the top end of the championship.
Ooh, that was a lot of curb to grab on that last corner there. Oof. But yeah, I mean, I think we're going to have, it's almost going to be like a season restart where all the points are going to be so close that it's like, well, this is the first race of the season. And yeah, someone's 5 points, 6 points, 10 points up, but that really doesn't have any massive effect on the overall season. So it's going to be interesting because everyone's going to be kind of given new life.
Yeah, my goodness me, that is
drifting.
He's made it through the corner and somehow kept ahead of Rob Besson. I don't know how he's managed to keep ahead of him. If he's not pitted for tyres, no, he can't have pitted for tyres because he's still got the one next to him. If he hadn't already, he definitely needs to now, because those all 4 of those tyres are going to be shot to pieces, aren't they? That's going to be making these S's so difficult. I mean, you and I have both probably driven on hot tyres in this sim. They're so slippery, aren't they? Especially after you've made a mistake like that.
Oh, yeah. You have to change your pace completely and your brake points and your your entire strategy until they turn back into hopefully yellow all the way down to green again. But sometimes, I mean, I've had races where I burn the tires like that, and I'm basically ice skating for the rest of the time.
For the foreseeable future. Stop go
Yeah.
30 for Ollie Gio there. In fact, that's probably going to be because he's been caught speeding in the pit lane, because there's no live stewarding for this particular championship, because as you can probably see based on that already, they're probably a little bit too much for the guys to be doing. And first of the lead pack, Chris, to pit, Martin Thorpe. I am going to have to click on his name because, yeah, it is Martin Thorpe. I'm sorry, Martin, for calling you Matt a couple of times. But Martin, first of the front runners to pit. Gianluca De Luca pits from P9 as well. You see a couple of those kind of back markers exiting the pit lane now as well. This is really where things start to play into the territory of looking towards the back end of the race, doesn't it? Because is he going to get the benefit now of pitting early? Because at the end of the day, for everyone who knows ACC, it's a 30-second pit stop for tyres. You don't get anything different unless you got damage, for example. So it's interesting to see whether he'll see the benefit or whether the benefit will drop to the guys like those on the screen at the moment, like Van der Stroys or Yagulis or anyone like that, for going longer.
You know, I would probably pit very late, to be honest, just so that I have the freshest of tires for the majority of the end. Because for some reason in my mind, when it's a longer race, it's almost like the beginning kind of doesn't count, if you know what I mean. It's like, just keep consistent, keep your position, get in a place where you can actually make some moves in the last 30 to 40% of the race. Because, you know, you've seen it way too many times where someone kind of gets themselves out of position. And by out of position, I mean they're a little bit ahead of where they maybe their pace warrants. If you can get ahead at the end of the race and then finish, you're good. If you get ahead in the beginning of the race and have to defend that the entire time, that's a recipe for disaster, at least in my racing life.
Yeah, 100%. Interesting there. Now, that was a weird one. Just look, I was watching that as you were talking through that. Just looking at these two, so Van der Stroy and Coupland. Van der Stroy didn't really defend at all going into that chicane. Probably because he was coming into the pits, and that's fair enough. Like, there's no point defending and potentially getting a knock because you know that someone's going to be pitting sometime soon. But I don't know if he clearly didn't expect Ash to pit, because he's now lost the position as a result of it. Unless he gets a incredibly quick pit stop, he's now just lost a position just for the sake of just avoiding contact, which seems really, really strange.
It does seem strange, and I bet you, if you could hear him speak right now, he's like, "Oh, really? Dang it!
Yeah,
I let you by because I thought you weren't pitting, and now you're pitting. Oh, that's great." You know, one of those kind of like, well, hindsight's 20/20, as they say. So
yeah,
that would be frustrating to, I guess, quote unquote, give up the position with a plan to pit, and then the guy you're pitting behind was the guy you let ahead of you. That's frustrating.
It's not what you want to see. I can totally understand. No. I can understand the reasons why he did it. It totally makes sense why he did that in the first place. But like you say, it's one of them. You'll be sat there thinking, "Oh, for goodness sake! Like, how on earth has this happened?"
Yep. Because I would do the same thing. I would be like, "Okay, I don't need to defend the chicane, mess something up, and maybe defend too hard and get into contact right before I'm going to go in the pits. There's no reason for that." Exactly. And then you see the guy go into the pits. You're like, "Mick, come on now." I just feel the frustration. I feel it. Like,
this is it. So here we go. Marcus Hagel is up into, is he P14 now? So he's just gone past Mark Raddenbury, who's just served his pit stop. I was wondering where Mark was. I hadn't seen him on the timing chart. I thought he'd left. I thought he just disappeared in a huff, because he's struggling with the M4, M6, but clearly not. Carlos Jorgulis pitting as well. So he pits from P1, which then promotes Carlo Durazio, Niall Dodds, and Dario Zappa into the top three. Alessandro Di Candia will probably, unless he decides to pit, get a position on the number 24 Porsche as well. Of course, it'll only be a net position. He won't actually keep that position. In fact, no, he's pitting as well. So, never mind. Ignore what I said.
Now, looking at this situation, that was actually the perfect time to pit, because all the way up to position 8 still has to pit. So, likelihood of you getting back to the front is almost 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm just keen to see where Hagel comes out. I mean, he's like I say, he's quite far behind. I mean, looking at that, so Lisa Louise has just come into the pits. Nick Karagiannis also just coming into the pits. Like I say, Steve Derrick is the last of the running cars yet to pit. We'll see if he does it on this time around. It looks like he is, because he's going very tight off of the inside of that of the final chicane. These are the ones we need to keep an eye out for. So where is Marcus Hagel now? He's just come out of Spoon onto the back straight. He's going to get a couple of these, you would think, but it's 24 minutes left. There's some big gaps up there, isn't there? I mean, the case remains, where's he going to end up as Lisa Louise gets a drive-through for her troubles? So that means, I think she's exited the pits. So that must be, I think, is that the one where they speed, but they don't speed too much? I feel like
I think so.
Does both, doesn't it? It goes tiny bit of speeding, drive-through, big amount of speeding, Ollie G or stop go 30.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So there you go. So he's come out ahead of Karagiannis and Derek in the pit. And he's just got DeCandia as he's come out of there as well. So he is I'm trying to think. He's a net P8, I think. No, net P9, sorry. Because Lisa Louise has still got to serve her pit stop. Everyone else has. And the top three aren't going to lose their position to him because of the gaps from Jurgulis to Thorpe and to Coupland. That's more than enough time. So he's a net P9. And he's got 23 minutes left. Is that enough? And is he quick enough to get back up into the top? I'm going to say top 5 because I feel like top 3 is away from the occasion. But top 5, do you think do you think, Chris, he's got enough in him to get up into that top 5 again?
I mean, the talent, yes, 100% is there. The consistency, because I do feel like covering that gap is going to take the continued 2 minutes 1:59 time range, and honestly, we're not really seeing that throughout. Yeah, there's a couple here and there, but overall, I don't know if he has the pace in this one right now.
Yeah, we'll have to. Well, we've got 22 and a half minutes to see what happens. In the meantime, I just want to come back to this. This is something that I really like to see. It's almost looked like a really good move from Gianluca De Luca. Really big send. You can see there's a bit of contact. It's shifted DeCandia wide, but it's not showed it because the replay wasn't long enough. But you'll notice already, and in fact, he actually lost a position for his troubles as well. De Luca actually let DeCandia back through, which I really appreciate because he knew he made the mistake. He went a bit deep. Luckily, it didn't impact them too much, but I really like the fact he's just decided to lift on the exit of that corner. Didn't have to. Could have carried on. Could have used that as kind of your punt to pass, whatever you want to call it, or your block pass, I think is the appropriate term. But
punt to pass is a lot worse.
Yeah, very much different. It wouldn't have been sending him off to the shadow realm, as the kids say it these days. But yeah, it's nice to see that he's decided to do that. I think that's a good way of just being a good sport at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, we're still very early into the season. It's not like a championship is on the line. I bet you that wouldn't have happened if a championship was on the line. But this early, let's keep it civil. Let's keep it so that we have some friends on the track and not as many rivals, I'd say.
Absolutely, we're all friends here at the end of the day. So Lisa Louise, she served her drive-through, so she's still got a pit stop to go. She's P13 at the moment. Mark Norton's just gone off the track by the looks of it. I'm not entirely sure what would have happened there. Let's see if we can see what little mistake has come out of the Flying Dutchman as he's going through the S's. Oh no, this is all.
It's the typical.
Yeah. That's the
getting them.
Middle part of the S's, isn't it? I was about to say it's just to come up through Dunlop, but it's not. It's just before that. So yeah, just like you say, it was that green bit of AstroTurf, wasn't it, on the interior curb? That's what's thrown him in the end.
Yeah, it's just the curb is a little high, and then we're trying to run the cars as low as possible. Maybe you ground it out a little bit and just pop the tire off the track, and then. He saved it relatively, though, because there was a little contact on the wall, it looked like, but it was only a little bit of a rub. Wasn't really hard into it, so I don't think ultimately it caused anything bad.
Yeah, he's got out of it.
A frustrating mistake is all that one is.
Yeah, knowing what Mark's like, he'll be very frustrated at that as well. So now, everyone but Lisa Louise is pitted. So she is the last of the running cars to pit for their mandatory tyre stop. We've got 20 minutes left of this one. At this moment in time, Karolis Jurgulis is your race leader. He sits in P1 in the Meme Nation number 24 Porsche 911. Carlo Durazio sits there in P2 in the EOS Esports Racing BMW, the number 25 car, with Niall Dodds, our latest driver to pit, comes out into P3. He's got a second and a half back to Martin Thorpe and about 5 seconds to the two in front of him. So he's got that last position on the podium. Dario Zappa a few more seconds back in P5. Ash Coupland sits in P6. And then it's Thomas Van der Stroys, Mark Cooper, Marcus Hagel and Alessandro Di Candia just about, as I go back to him for another point in this race, just about Chris holding on to P10 in the old style racing Italian idiot players racing team car. I was wondering what because I've noticed OSRIIP in the team name a few times, and I actually spotted this on Dario Zappa's car, so presumably they know each other. If I look at his rear wing, he has exactly the same thing.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I've only just noticed it, and I hadn't noticed it was on here as well, but explains a lot as to why it's got that strange acronym-based team name in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. That's a pretty creative name there. I try to come up with very cool names all the time where it sounds like I'm like a professional racing team. Maybe it's time to go the other route and have just a nice and fun, maybe a little bit ridiculous name. I like it.
I'm terrible when it comes to that. I've got the creativity of a sponge.
Naming things is hard.
Naming things is so tough. Yeah, exactly. I am glad I'm not that kind of person who has to do that sort of thing, because I don't have the capacity to do it. It's the God's honest truth.
Yeah, this is a rough go right here. So the gap between these three is small enough to where all of them have to worry about what's going on now, obviously. If you're in the front, all you do is worry about the people behind. The worst position to be in my opinion, is definitely you're attacking and defending at the exact same time, which we've already talked about the fact that defending compromises your race, and then attacking kind of compromises your race as well, because obviously you're doing different lines. Let's get, both the best of both worlds in there, where you have to attack and defend all in one.
Absolutely. Yeah, the middle, I completely agree. The middle is the worst position to be in by a country mile, because like you say, you have to manage both aspects of your race, especially, and I mean this in the nicest way, especially when you've got a car or a driver as opportunistic is probably the word I'm going to use, as Gianluca De Luca. We've seen he's made some pretty good moves so far in this particular race. Of course, had that incident with Candia, who rightly decided to let the position go back, which is always nice to see, as mentioned before. But he's one of those people, I feel like if you give him an inch, he is going to take a mile. If Rich tries to make the move on Alessandro in P10, any little mistake he makes and leaves the door even the slightest bit ajar, De Luca's going through it. Like, yeah, through any way possible.
Look how tight he is on the bumper there. He's wanting the move to happen so he can just take them both at the same time, I'm betting. Because staying real close, not really sending it into the corners or anything, just trying to bide his time and wait for the move to happen in front of him, so maybe he can do a little bit of a Lewis Hamilton and just slip on by both.
Through goes De Luca. I can picture it now. It's going to be it's going to be one of our names in lights, as one of us calls it when it happens. Just got to make sure you do it with the appropriate level of gusto that someone like David Croft would do it.
Look, yeah, he's married up to the bumper there, which is, it looks like it's extending the gap a little. I mean, the gap is so tiny right now that it's almost negligible, but it does look like it's making for a little bit of a gap in the front there. So maybe the defense is actually taking its toll. And that beautiful white in Japanese riding livery there.
It's not a bad looking machine, is it? You got to say. It's
beautiful to look at.
Very much an accordion based battle, this, isn't it? I can see some flashing, I believe, there from De Luca in behind Pixley. So that's the mind games have officially begun, if they hadn't done already. With 15 minutes left to go in this one, so we're nearly we're practically 3/4 of the way through. The gap at the lead at the moment is still just around the 2-second mark between Jogulis and Durazio. Niall Dodds has dropped back a little bit. Thorpe has gained a little bit of time on Dodds, but not anything too major at the moment. Not enough to sort of think of manufacturing the pass. Zappa and Coupland still a few seconds back behind them as well. And then the rest of your top 10 down to the man on screen. DeCandia is the same. Rich Pixley sits in P11 and Luca in P12, as you can see at this moment in time. Pixley's teammate Peter Phillips is sat in P13. Mark Neutlings dropped back after a very good qualifying in that M6. Always, DeCandia goes a little bit wide there. DeLuca
There's that mistake.
made an interesting move.
Come.
This is the one he wants, but he's on the outside going into the hairpin. Can he cross it over? That's really nicely done from Pixley if he can hold on to it, but goes a little bit deep.
Way wide.
Oh, nicely done.
Oh, okay. Kept it. Nice.
Managed that really well, I feel like Rich did. It was a audacious move to an extent, because you're going into that hairpin, you're almost guaranteed not to get the move done if you're on the outside, aren't you? So the fact that he managed to keep that position despite being on the outside into that tight hairpin is impressive.
Yeah, the only benefit you do have if you are on the outside and someone else is trying to make a move on the inside is you can get on the gas a little bit earlier, and I think that's ultimately what made him pull out. That was nice. Well done.
Yeah, really nice move from Pixie there. Made the most of the mistake. Didn't need inviting twice that one, and DeCandia drops himself back out into P11. DeLuca still very much on the cusp of a top 10 as it stands. We'll see whether that happens. Oh, my goodness.
Back in a fight. Holy smokes.
Alessandra's wasted no time in getting stuck back into this. In fact, he might be the architect of his own demise here, because he's got a little bit of a gap back to Pixie now, and DeLuca's going to use all of this to give himself a chance to get on the inside. He's not quite alongside. I don't know if it looks like that Aston Martin, the 79 cars, maybe just set up a bit more for top end, you would think, because he didn't really... DeLuca got the move, he got the run out of the corner and then wasn't alongside
really
and going into the braking zone, did he? No.
Kind of. I thought it was going to materialize a little bit better. They were going to be going into the first right-hander there, but it ultimately ended up being just kind of a normal pull out ahead and then back off again.
Yeah, nothing much happening on that one. Let's have another look a bit further round the field. That's Jamie Buchanan on your picture at the moment. That's Dario Zappa ahead of them, but rest assured he's still sitting in P5, so this isn't a battle for positions. Oh, Buchanan goes a little bit wide. Nearly opens the door through Spoon for Lisa Louise, who sat right behind him. She was leading the AM class, wasn't she, until we had that drive-through, so unfortunate for her to cause that in the end. In fact, that drive-through, probably because she hadn't served the pit stops, probably your track limits one instead, you'd think, because surely if she had the drive-through and she'd done the pit stop, it obviously would have been green on the timing tower. So
very true.
Here we go, round the outside into the chicane, goes a little bit deep. I would say that's fair. I think that looked like she kept enough of the car on the track. Jamie's going to get the run out of the corner, though. That Honda's relatively quick in a straight line, but that BMW has got some speed on the black stuff when you're pointing it in one direction, hasn't it? And looks like Lisa's got that move done. She's up into P22. Yeah. That looked... As soon as that move went around the outside, I felt like that Honda was really never going to catch it in a straight line.
Yeah, that felt nice and clean. Nothing wrong with exactly what happened there. And you're right, that BMW on the straight is... That's where its strength is. That's why they were so strong at Monza. And that's why they're struggling a little bit more here, just because of the slower cornering. Yeah,
100%. Speaking of one who's struggling a little bit, I think you'd say, although I'm sure he'll be quite happy with the fact that he's made a few positions up the grid since the start of the race, is Mark Randenbury, Pos per boss man. He's made 5 positions since the start, including that of Nick Calianis, who he's just gotten past in the last couple of corners. Interestingly for Mark, he's running a livery that isn't... It doesn't look like a custom livery, which is very much against what he would normally do. Of course, he was running the same livery as Mark Neutlings was in the last round, but for whatever reason, not doing it. In fact, I was about to say it looks very similar to that of Mark Neutlings, as there is, I think it's Bellozzo off at the first corner. I was about to say, I wondered if because he did tell me he changed it slightly, but wondered how unloaded, but it doesn't look like it's done anything like that. Oh, goodness me.
Grief.
I think that's Michael de Groot. Yeah, just coming back onto the circuit there. I'll go back and see what happened. Just deep coming through Dunlop, and okay, so I thought he'd made more of a mistake there. Oh, goodness me.
That's a tough go, because at that moment you've made the mistake, so you had to slow down, and there's almost no way to get off of the racing line in that section of the track there. Pretty much anywhere is some sort of racing line, especially with a group coming up. Yeah, you just kind of have to hold your ground and just hope. Cross your fingers. And ultimately it ended up okay, but it did slow down the pack a little bit. But hey, there's nothing you can do there. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It was not the kind of position you want to be being in Rich Pixie's shoes, I would expect, because it looked like he had to make a very, very quick bit of avoiding action to get out of the way there. So luckily for these three,
no one falling foul of that particular rejoin there, which is good to see. As I just saw, was that DeLuca going really, really wide there? I didn't quite see it yet, but I'm pretty sure he went super wide going through 130R. And that's given DeCandia everything that we feel like he might need, Chris. He's got a little bit of a gap, although he's lost a bit of time to DeLuca there. He was almost in that perfect position, wasn't he, where he had the time behind him to make the move and not have to worry about defending. But I said that, and now it's back to half a second between them, all three of them again.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the exciting part here. So we're 9 minutes left. We've talked about it before in other races, whether it was last season or this season. Do you see a hole as the driver behind, and you're like, okay, I know where I'm going to make my move, but I know it's going to be difficult to make it stick. So do I wait until the second to last lap or even the last lap to actually do it, to just hold the position, hopefully? So you got to wonder if there's strategy going on back there.
I feel like if I'm in my position, I'm looking at the fact that if I'm Alessandro Di Candia in this position, in fact, I'm going to come back to this because this is the battle for the leads. This is Durazio very much pushing Carolis Jurgulis through 130R as they go into the chicane. This is lap 25 as we go into the final 8.5 minutes of this one. So we're into the final knockings of this second round of the season. Jurgulis is under a bit of pressure now from the BMW of Durazio. We talked about how quick that BMW is in a straight line against that Porsche in particular. As you go, you can see the weave. The weave begins. It's ironic because they do, like, I love it when people do that, thinking, oh, I'm going to weave because then the guy behind me can't get the toe. They're just going to follow you. Like, there's no difference at all.
Oh, wow. There almost was a drift coming out there. So this is really difficult on Jurgulis right now because we all know the BMW at the moment is faster in a straight line than the Porsche, but the Porsche can probably take the turns at faster paces than the BMW can. So this is almost the perfect race to have as a viewer, as a commentator, where the BMW is in the back. So the Porsche, he has to do something on that home straight. And like you said, you do the weave, but you know the driver behind you is 100% just going to follow you around because he wants that toe. He needs that toe. So 7 minutes left. Are we gonna see that BMW? Are we gonna see a photo finish? I'm hoping so. I want to see door-to-door action at the very end here. Come on, let's make it happen. Make it exciting for us, please.
Come on, let's manifest it. Let's manifest it over the last 7.5 minutes of this race.
There's a commentator's curse. Can we have a commentator's request? Is that what we're trying to do right now? I don't know.
You're talking like a rain dance sort of thing.
Yeah,
is that what we're going for?
Yeah, a rain dance. There we go.
So if you want to dance around your respective room and I'll dance around mine, and we'll kind of say like photo finish like that.
Photo finish, please. Photo finish. Although this Lambo getting in the mix is not helping Jurgulis whatsoever.
I was going to say, yeah, you've got a lot to consider with back markers as well, haven't you? So who have they got? They've got, so that is, you see the flashing
the lights, get out of my way. Oh, no. Oh, that's going to be rough.
Oh, dear.
Oh, no.
All over the back of him, and look how close he is now.
That completely changed this start-finish straight right here, because now the BMW... I think I prefer Jurgulis' line just because of the double right-hander coming up, but look at that BMW. It's like a Red Bull versus a Mercedes in F1 right now.
Wow. Move done before the corner. Goodness me.
Yeah, that chicane. Jurgulis is fuming right now. Who is that Lambo that held him up right there?
It's Robert Besant, I believe. Yeah, it is, yeah.
I don't think Besant's going to get a lot of pleasant words or at least vibes coming from Jurgulis after this race, because that could have cost him the podium right there.
I could not agree with you more. I feel like that is the win in a move there. I feel like if it was one of them, like if Besant had just lifted into the corner as well, actually, Durazio goes a little bit wide.
Okay, keep it interesting.
There's
Photo finish.
It's I was gonna say, yeah. So if Besant had gotten out of the way earlier, that would have been absolutely fine for Jurgulis, because he would have just taken the normal line into the chicane, and he would have just carried on. Yeah, the mind games have well and truly begun. But because he didn't, it meant that Jurgulis had to compromise his entry, compromise the exit, therefore, and that's what's caused the move. So unfortunate.
And then you got Carlo. He knows he's compromised, so all he has to do is take a smooth line out. you've got the BMW, you have the straight line speed over the Porsche without question. Now we're coming up on another lapped car here, so this could actually have an effect, and maybe Jurgelis can make a move, but it just looks like, wow. Yeah, that BMW on that straight line, he had no problems dispatching that one.
No messing around from Durazzo. He went for the move into 130. Look how close these two guys are at the moment. This is ridiculous. As I've just noticed, Decandia with a yellow flag and a drive-through for his troubles as well. So he's dropped right the way back. I don't know if there's been any contact between them. Is this contact between two? I think this is what has happened. This is what might have caused the moves. Oh!
Okay, yeah, just a little bit of a dip into the grass over there.
Yeah.
Slow down enough to where the driver behind you probably couldn't really do much about that. I think that's a racing incident. That's
there's not much you can do there. No, exactly. It's difficult. You had to come back onto the line. It's impossible at that stage because of the understeer that these cars are going to generate to an extent for De Luca to have gotten out of the way. There's nothing either one of them could have done.
Yeah, that's normal racing incident there, in my opinion. So this is difficult here. Jurgelis, he has to stay in that toe or he's got no chance, and he has to make a move on a corner. There's no way he's going to be able to catch him on a straigaway in that Porsche.
So you're in his position, you're in the Porsche right now. Where are you thinking that move's going to get done?
Honestly, I think it's going to have to be one of the tight corners like the chicane or something, but that's so late in the lap that it's dangerous. Like, you want it to happen in like the hairpin or maybe the snakes, but I just don't see that happening. I think the BMW just has too much speed on you.
It is a really tough one to do, isn't it? Like you say, I'm feeling the hairpin as they come out under the bridge off the Degners. The chicane at the end of the lap, it's doable, but like you say, that's one of those where I feel like he's going to need to make a similar move to how Durazzo did it, where he's going to have to hope for some back markers. He's already 0.8 of a second off.
And looking at the gap between the back markers and that BMW right now, it's not even going to have an effect on this race. So it's going to have to be a pure pass. And honestly, with the gap that we got running right now at 0.8, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, because Mike Richards is the closest car on track to them. He's just coming onto the start-finish straight properly now. You just see him just appeared in the foreground of the picture there. There he is in that BWT racing liveried Audi. Now, see, look, I hate to say it, I don't want to call him out for it, but Mike Richards, he's made a couple of mistakes in this race already where he's drifted through the first couple of corners. I wonder if we'll see a roll repeat of that again to potentially throw the cat amongst the pitches. It'd be interesting to see if that would be the case.
Yeah, if he has clean laps, these two are not going to catch him, so he's going to have no impact on the overall result of this race. But right now, it does look like the BMW is going to triumph just because of its straight line speed.
We've got 1 minute and 45 seconds to find out, so I would call that 2 laps remaining, including this one. As we go back to another Ferrari? Well, you've got a Ferrari on the screen. Got another BMW, was what I was going to say, of Martin Thorpe. He's holding off the advances of Dario Zappa at the moment, who now holds the fastest lap of the race. He's gone 300 or 2 and a bit hundredths second quicker than Marcus Hagel, who's really not pulled up trees in the end following that incident at the start of the race. Don't know whether he's just not fixed all of the damage. Maybe he's carrying a bit of it still. I don't really know, but hasn't really picked it up. And sorry, I'm just going to go back to this because this is very close indeed. So I'm looking at the relative on the screen. I'm struggling where to go because I've just noticed that Zappa and Thorpe have changed position as well. I don't know what to look at. In fact, Zappa and Thorpe have just they've reset to the positions they were in before. So this is what's happened here. Let's see what happens as they go into the hairpin. Is it a bit deeper, a little bit late, and $1 short from Zappa? Yeah, it's an innocuous little move.
Okay.
Zappa does, from what I can tell, wait for him because they're back into the positions now, as you can see. So nice from Zappa to do that. It felt avoidable. It was one of those where I feel like he just didn't need to do what he did he? It was just a bit kind of clumsy, I guess, to an extent.
Yeah, obviously good sportsmanship giving that position back, but ultimately, yeah, that was a little rough.
Yeah, luckily for them,
at the end of the race, you have to send it somewhere. So, do I blame him? No, not at all.
No, exactly. You don't blame him for going for the move, but yeah, could it have been done a bit better? Of course, it could have been. Fortunately for them, they've still retained the positions they were in. Ash Coupland's closed up a little bit on Zappa, so he's 2 seconds back now. But by no means enough to really kind of make a move done. But here we go then. On to the final lap, and this is going to be the fight we're going to watch all the way until the finish. It's the closest two cars on track, and it's for the two most important positions on the grid as well for the end of this one. It's it's Jurgulis versus Durazio. It's Porsche versus BMW. Unfortunately for us, Chris, they're in the wrong positions, aren't they? Like you say, you kind of wanted the Porsche to be ahead because of that differential in the characteristics of the car, but Jurgulis has been pushing him around these last couple of laps. There's still a chance for a move here.
There is a chance for a move. Fortunately, for me, mentally, I think the chance is gone at this point, unless there's some kind of major mistake coming in from Durazio here. We're going to flash the lights as much as possible, play with them as much as possible, try to get some kind of mental mistake to happen, but with the race that's been run, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see that photo finish right here. That Besant gift, Durazio might end up sticking and end up being the P1 for him.
Yeah, how much will Durazio be enjoying that, and how much will Jurgulis be ruining that back marker of Robert Besant, who ultimately, like you say, is at this moment in time looks to have been gifted the win to Durazio as they come down the back straight for the final time. They've got Mike Richards just ahead of him. It doesn't look like they're going to have any issues with him. He looks like he might be a little bit too far ahead of them to cause any issues as they go through 130 for one final time. The flashing lights are still going. Is he going to go for the almighty send at the end? He's not. He's not close enough. And as they go through the chicane for one final time, barring any miraculous mistake from Carlo Durazio, he's going to come through. Silver class champion last year. It is race winner in the pro class this evening for Carlo Durazio in the end. Flashes lights he crosses in the EOS esports racing machine. Karolis Jurgulis comes through for an admirable second place in the end. A shame that he was taken and lost the win in the way that he did. Niall Dodds comes through for an incredibly efficient and rather quiet for him third place in the end. Martin Thorpe holds off Zappa for fourth and fifth respectively. Ash Coupland comes back a second or so adrift in P6, and then it's Thomas van der Stroys, the next man to cross the line in the Orcapos 963 Mercedes. Mark Cooper will cross the line a little bit further back behind him, and that's Ollie Geel in the background of that kit picture as well. Marcus Hagel in the end will just about fall short of a P8. You can just see him in the background there. He comes through for P9 in the end. And Richard Pixley of the Wild Things Racing car, the ultimate winner of this race in terms of positions gained, 20 in the end. A few didn't make it to the finish, but most of them he's done on track, which is incredibly impressive, you have to say, Chris. Comes out to round out the top 10.
That is a beautiful performance by Pixley there. That goes along with his beautiful livery. Well done.
Absolutely. And if you didn't want to see it, if you don't want to not see it again, there's another copy of it. Peter Phillips coming through in P12. Gianluca De Luca in the end falls short of that top 10 position. He comes through in P11. Mark Neutelings is followed through in 13th and 14th by Mark Raddenberry, his positive perception teammate. Andrea De Perna comes through for P15. I'm assuming this again, by the way, because they've obviously not crossed the line, but let's just assume they're all going to get through the positions that they are. Nick Karianis comes through in a very good P8, P16, and an AM class victory for the Greek driver there. Ivo van Collenberg comes through in P17 overall. Alessandro Di Candia in the end drops out of the top 15. He was 12th at one point, but finishes 18th on track after that drive-through penalty towards the end. Steve Derrick in P19, and Mike Richards will be the last of the running cars to finish this one, comes round in P20. The remaining running cars: Rob Besant finishes P21, Lisa Louise P22, Ollie Geel P23, Jamie Buchanan, Nadir Balozzo, and Martin de Groot round out the running cars. 26 finished in total in the end, Chris. That was great fun, to be fair. I mean, how to think that we had a battle right until the end of but the entire race. It wasn't even just a class victory that was on the line. That was brilliant racing from start to finish from everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous. Overall, the race was very clean. We saw some great sportsmanship all over the grid. That I wanted a photo finish. Unfortunately, we didn't get that photo finish. Maybe next time, but that BMW straight line speed, again, just showing how powerful it actually is.
Absolutely. Do you know what's really funny is that I've just the server has just switched over because I've noticed the timing screen has changed as well. The server is drenched in rain. What a missed opportunity. Not to say that race wasn't impressive and action-packed as we normally come to expect, I suppose, from the Positive Perception GT Championship these days. Very, very good race indeed. I've just seen Carol Shogun saying good race to the guy in P1 in the end. So that was, of course, Carlo Durazio who won that one in the end. It's pretty sure the backmarker gave my win away. As much as I don't like to call people out, and I'm not saying that this was done on purpose, I just want to make that very clear now. That ultimately was the reason, I think, why Carolus didn't get that win.
You know, that one is a very, very hard one to stomach there, because honestly, I did think Jurgelis was doing everything he ultimately needed to do to keep that P1. Now, P2's nothing to be ashamed of by any means, but yeah, I don't want to call anything out, but that little bit of a backmarker gift ultimately did end up giving the race. Now, we're not saying that the race would have been different, but hopefully photo finish could have happened or something like that. That was kind of rough to watch the last couple of laps there, where Jurgelis, well played, Durazio, well played, good job everyone on the grid there, obviously, but yeah, that gift was a very big one. That was the number one item on the Christmas list for Durazio there, is that back marker affecting the race to that level.
He'll definitely be sending his Christmas cards to Rob Besant and his family after that one in the end. But look, you can't take anything away from him. Ultimately, he was in the position. Yeah, he was in the position to get the move done. Yes, it was. I suppose it was almost an assisted pass, I guess you'd say. It was. Think DRS in F1, for example. Like it's an assistant to an overtake, isn't it? And I feel like that was kind of similar in a sense, but he still had to be close enough to get the move done.
Oh yeah. The move was great. The situation, everything came together for the perfect last chicane pass, and it was well done. And then the straight line just ultimately ended up proving too much for the Porsche to be able to catch back up again. Couple of light flashes, couple of close calls in the corners, but yeah, that BMW just pulling out ahead. We'll see what happens to it actually on the next update here, because
yeah,
like you said in the beginning of the broadcast, we do have an update coming in between now and the next race, so things could be shaken quite a bit.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Chris. Yeah, so next race is in 2 weeks' time at Donington Park, so make sure you join Chris and myself for that one in 2 weeks from now. Of course, yeah, like I say, major ACC update scheduled for the 19th of April. So gonna be some changes, you would think. Well, will we see some new cars on the grid? Who knows? I'm kind of hoping we don't, because that normally means either someone's going to have to slapdash a livery together, or they're not going to use one. And I like a custom livery. I'd rather see a custom one, you know?
I'll be honest, I want at least one person to drive the new car, but I don't want to see too many people change off of their current ones, because I want to see how it ultimately puts itself into the grid.
Yeah, I for one am thinking of the admin I'm going to have to do. I'm not touching the standings until probably Thursday afternoon. Because I know for a fact that I am not going to have that the same between next Monday, for example, and the race actually starting. They're not going to be the same. There's no chance. People will change. But like I say, yeah, I'm keen to see how it goes. I'm keen to see how that changes things as well. So yeah, Donington, 2 weeks from now. Misano, it starts our second half of the season on the 4th of May. Zandvoort on the 18th, and then we finish off the season at Watkins Glen on the 1st of June to wrap things up. Yeah, it's another race in the books, Chris. We're 2 rounds in. We're, a third of the way through the season now. Things are starting to shape up, and obviously with both the Pole Simsport guys out of the major points paying positions, it throws that Pro Championship wide open, and differing winners in the other class as well. It's going to shape things up really nicely, isn't it?
Yeah, this is going to be an extremely exciting season, and pick your favorite driver now, because everyone's in the running. And honestly, if you're not part of the Positive Perception Discord server, there is some chit chat going on right now that is very, very interesting and amusing to watch. So if you're not a member of the Discord, go ahead and join that, even if you're just a viewer, because you can kind of see some of the banter going on. There is an apology from Besant in that Discord chat at the moment, recognizing that he did impact it quite a bit. So
it's nice to see.
Very fun stuff going on in the Discord as well. Some behind the scenes doing air quotes here. Even though I'm not on a camera, you know how that goes.
Yeah, so sorry is a very difficult thing to say, especially so it takes a lot of stuff to do that. So fair play to Rob for doing that.
Yeah,
like I say, it's always a nice thing to see when stuff like that happens. So glad to see it's using taking the high road, doing that as well. Not that I think he would have taken the low road anyway. He didn't really do anything wrong. He just didn't do it the way that it would have benefited. So.
It all came together perfect to where he happened to be the one that impacted the race enough.
Exactly. This is it. So anyway, that brings us nicely to a close. Chris, thank you as ever for your time, my friend. It's been lovely to spend another, evening for me, afternoon for you, talking over some fantastic racing. And for everyone who has stopped by, whether you're watching us live or you're watching us back now and wrapping it up, whilst you're having a nice cup of coffee, Mark Cooper, I'm looking at you. You normally do that. I'm sure you've told me about this many times on a Friday morning. And a happy Easter to everyone who's watching as well. Hope you have a lovely long weekend. I'm certainly looking forward to it. And we will see you guys in a couple of weeks for the third round of the season at Donington Park. So make sure you're here for that one. But on behalf of myself and Chris Potable, it's a good night from me. It's a good night from both of us. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the day, wherever you might be. Thank you very much for watching as always. And we'll see you again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.